So here's what empirical formula is. First of all, hota kya? 2-mark definition. Empirical formula gives the simplest ratio of elements in a compound. Okay, so empirical formula gives the simplest ratio of elements in a compound. That's what this is. Where do we use it? All giant structures. All giant structures have empirical formula. They don't have molecular formula. Only simple molecular substances have molecular formula. So जब मैं आपसे कहता हूँ NaCl, I do not mean कि इसमें 1 sodium and 1 chlorine है. All this means is that you have 1:1. जितने sodium है उतने chlorides हैं. Similarly, when I say CaCO3, I do not mean that I have actually 1 calcium and 1 carbon and 3 oxygen. It just means that that is the ratio in which they're combined. But when I say C2H5OH and I tell you that this is a molecular formula, this basically means I have actually 2 carbon atoms, 5 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen, and 1 hydrogen joined like that. So this is the actual number which is available in the molecular formula and compared to ratio which is available in the empirical formula. Okay, so how do you figure this out? The methods are pretty straightforward. Step 1, you have to take the mass or the percentage by mass. Doesn't matter which one, but one of them. And you divide by AR. For those of you who understand this, basically you're dividing mass by AR. What will you get? Mole. So technically we're trying to figure out the moles or the moles of element. And second step, you simplify. अब simplify करने के ना हमारे पास 2 methods हैं. One is that we divide by smaller number. So one method is you divide by smaller number. And if that doesn't work, then the second method is you multiply by LCM. And why are we doing this? Because we want to simplify it to whole numbers. So let me do an example. Let's say हमारे पास, this is the example number 1 from your worksheet. So I have sulfur and I have oxygen. Sulfur is 40%, oxygen is 60%. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ignore this first. Okay, now I'm going to do the first step, which is divide by AR. So divide by 32, divide by 16. This one gives me 1.25 and this one gives me 3.75. Now I have this. I will obviously divide by the smallest. That's my second step. So this gives me 1:3. And that's my answer. My answer is S1O3. Don't forget to write the formula at the end. Sometimes students forget. वो यहाँ तक करते हैं और फिर छोड़ देते हैं. Don't forget to do that. Okay, so that's how you figure out the empirical formula. Now here's the thing. Empirical formula is related to the molecular formula. For example, I have C6H12O6. ये उसका empirical formula उसने मुझे दे दिया, molecular formula दे दिया. मुझे empirical निकालना है. So I will simply divide it by 6. So I get CH2O. Okay. Now here's an interesting observation. The empirical mass, basically the mass of empirical formula, is 1 carbon, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. So this is 12 plus 2 times 1 plus 16, which is 30. And MR of this thing is 180. And there's a relation here. 180 divided by 30 is equal to this divided by this. Because अगर मैं 180 को 30 से divide करता हूँ, I get 6. I multiply 6 by this, I get this. In other words, if you have the empirical formula, you just need the MR and you will figure out the molecular formula. An examiner आपसे कभी-कभी 1-mark question पूछ लेता है कि what information do you need after empirical formula to figure out the molecular formula? The answer is molecular mass. कैसे आप करते हैं? You simply take this divided by whatever empirical formula you have. 30 है for example यहाँ पे. 6 आ गया, multiply 6 with this, you'll get your molecular formula. Okay, thank you so much.